Hi everyone, it's Pete here and welcome to part 2 of my build guide of this, the lovely Tamiya Wild One. In this part I'll be completing the kit and taking it for a little test drive and also sorting out a few little problems. Last time I got as far as completing step 24, so we're starting this one at step 25. In this step we need to set up the radio gear, centralise the servo and build up the servo saver. So I've got this powered up and the steering's in the neutral position. As I've got a metal output shaft on this servo, I'm using a little bit of thread lock to make sure the screw doesn't shake loose. Whether you use the P5 or P6 part depends on the number of splines you've got on the output shaft of your servo. Because this servo's got a metal output shaft, I need the 3mm machine screw. So a quick test, and then also while it's still powered on, check that the servo saver springs back to the centre. If it doesn't, you might need to loosen the screw up a little bit. In step 26 we need to put the adjusters on the ends of the steering rods. You need to remove a bit of plastic from the adjuster, and one tip is to remove it vertically so you don't lose too much length. To screw the ends on till the lengths match the picture, and that's that bit done. Next, attach the A8 parts to the servo. They do say to alter the attachment direction of the A8 part depending on the servo height, but they don't really explain that. This did turn out to be the right way for this servo. Then it's just a matter of attaching the steering rods to the servo horn, and that's that step done. In step 27 we're attaching the servo and the ESC to the chassis. You've got quite a bit of adjustment on the servo position so you can get the steering centralised. Once you have got it centralised, tighten up the screws. Next you need to work out where your ESC is going, and I've removed a little plastic lug here to give me a bit more space. I'm using the Absima thrust brushless combo in this kit. In step 28 we're putting in the receiver and the ESC switch. The switch on the ESC that I'm using hasn't got screw holes, so I'm just using cable ties to hold it in. I wanted to run the motor wires through the centre of the chassis, so I just needed to take away a little bit of the plastic. It's not a mistake that the colours don't match up, it does run correctly this way. Step 29 is getting the servo in the right place, which I've already done. Steps 30 to 32 are all to do with building up the body and cockpit pieces. I tend to just cut the pieces out as best as I can with Lexan scissors, and I don't bother to file it or sand it afterwards. So you end up with the main bonnet piece and the roof, and also the cockpit piece here with the driver body. I'm using Tamiya PS23 gunmetal paint backed with PS5 black paint. So it's time to take off the overspray film to see how it looks. So I'm happy with that, and it's just a little bit different to the standard box art black. For the cockpit part I painted the whole thing PS5 black and then cut away the overspray film on the bits that I wanted to be white. Then it's just a matter of removing that part of the film and painting the top side PS1 white. Then I removed the rest of the film to see how accurate my cutting was, and to be fair it's not too bad. Then it's a couple of coats of Tamiya PS55 flat clear, and I've added some of the stickers. Also I've put some Gorilla Tape on the underside to strengthen it a bit. For the driver's head I've used Humble enamel paints for the face and the black bits. I've used a bit of extra Lexan here where his head attaches. And that's him done. I might paint these gloves a different colour at a later date. I've already skipped forward to step 38 and put on most of the stickers, and I'm using these silver spotlights from the Wild One blockhead kit. That's the main body piece finished, and I think it looks pretty good. Back to step 33, which is putting the cockpit piece into the chassis. I cut out a little bit at the back to route the motor wires. It's easier to get this in with the front of the roll cage not attached. Once the cockpit's in, it's held down with body clips. Step 34 is attaching the front of the roll cage, which I already did, attaching the A1 piece to the top and routing the aerial up the side of the roll cage. Step 35 is putting the tyres on the front wheels and putting them on the car. One top tip here is to definitely glue the tyres on the wheels. I only glued the outside edge of these, and you can see later on the test run what happened. Step 36 is putting the tyres on the back wheels and putting them on the car. I'm drilling holes in the back tyre so I should be able to spin out any water that gets in there. Again, definitely glue the tyres on both the inside and outside edges, more of that later. This has got a slightly unusual wheel fitting with these spacers. Step 37 is putting on the roof and the main body piece. With This main bonnet piece I've done quite a bit of strengthening with Gorilla Tape and extra Lexan. So it's looking good, but it's not quite finished yet. Step 39 is putting together the battery plate. Step 40 is putting in the battery and securing it with the battery plate. I'm using this shorty LiPo and I'm running the wires inside the car rather than outside like it shows in the instructions. This way there's no unsightly wires flopping about. Time to test the suspension. The front seems good, but the back's a bit too bouncy. So I've changed to this slightly heavier 600 CST oil in the back and it does seem better. Quick test that everything works, it's time for a test drive. So the first thing to say is this is a huge amount of fun. The handling is much better than the hoppers like the Hornet, and it doesn't feel too overpowered with the brushless set. The rear tyres are really good on the grass and the sand. Talking of the tyres though, I did have a problem because I only glued the outside edges of all the tyres because I think I forgot to do the inside edges, and all the tyres ended up full of sand, so definitely glue both sides of the tyres. Even if you're not planning to drive in sand, then still glue the tyres because they will come away from the wheel, especially if you've got a brushless set like this. Next little problem was the parts of the body that come alongside the cockpit do sort of get unhooked far too easily. What I've done is to put an extra bit of thick Lexan here, and I've bent the BC1 metal bracket parts so they grip onto the roll bars. This does seem to work in keeping these side pieces attached. Next problem I had is I did hear some clicking from the gearbox, which I think is the halves of the differential coming apart, so what I've done is to put in an extra shim to sort of hold them together better. I've not had a chance to test that fix yet, so I will report on a later video whether that worked or not. Also the dog bone drive shafts did pop out a few times. Trouble is with this, it did put a hole in the rubber gaiter. What I've done is to put a bit of foam into the bottom of the inside drive cups, and that does seem to have helped. Other than those things, it's all good, and like I was saying, a lot of fun was had. If you've made it this far, then thank you ever so much for watching. I'll see you next time.